I'm originally from the UK, but I came over to Sydney, Australia just over 10 years ago now. And in that time, I've got to experience what Australian life is all about. And I must admit, there's things that I absolutely love about living here. And there's a few things that I don't like, which I'll share in this video. So let's get on to the first one. Generally, I find Australians really sociable, really friendly, very approachable. Like even if you're standing in a queue for a restaurant, they'll happily talk to you and there isn't any hidden agenda. There's nothing that they want from you. They can even come up to you randomly just to have a conversation, which is really unusual coming from the UK. But that's just how it is over here. It's just much more of a laid-back vibe, which I've really learned to love. I wasn't too sure about it in the beginning, but yeah, it's really grown on me now. But I must admit, they are quite outspoken compared to Brits. I think us Brits are a lot more reserved and we don't really want to create a scene or talk too loudly, especially in a quiet space like a train. But here they're more outspoken. They're not as afraid of what other people are going to think. And even if they're on a conversation with their partner on the phone, they'll happily say whatever's on their mind and they won't care who's around them or who's listening, even when they're speaking pretty loudly and everyone in the train can hear it. So that I found quite amusing in the beginning, and I must admit it can be pretty funny, the conversations that you get to overhear. And one thing I've really noticed is a sense of humour. It's a bit of a mixed bag. I'm more accustomed to a sarcastic sense of humour, which I absolutely love, and Brits are known for it, and there's so much banter in the workplace and with friends. I just love that whole atmosphere. But here it's a lot more silly humour, almost like slapstick comedy. I don't know if I'm terming that correctly, but so that's one little thing that I actually do miss. So one obvious thing I've noticed since working in Sydney, the fact that Australians are much more reactive. They don't plan as much as Brits do. Brits tend to plan or overplan any potential risk that can happen on a project in the workplace. Whereas over here in Australia, I've noticed that they don't plan as much and they'd rather just go straight into it, and as problems arise, they're very good at problem solving. They're very reactive at problem solving. And that's a good and a bad thing. In one way, they get the ball rolling when it comes to a project. However, the only issue is, from my perspective, is there's more potential risk, but they seem to be better at handling those risks because they see them so often. Whereas Brits mitigate as many risks as possible, and when one does come up, then it's all hands on deck and the red light's on, and it's a big deal. And the other strange thing I've noticed is people are a lot more informal here. Like even when it comes to getting interviewed, it feels more like a chat with a friend rather than a professional interview that you get back at home. So I found all the interviews really easy here and just nowhere near as stressful as I did back in the UK. Also, whenever you feel unwell and you have to take a sick day, I used to remember back in the UK it'd be frowned upon taking a day off. But here, like no one bats an eyelid. It's really unusual. It's almost like your sick leave is added onto your annual leave, so you may as well use it. It's really odd. You can go back into the office and people would just be a lot more trusting here. That's a plus point in my book. The lifestyle is night and day difference. It's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible in Sydney. I love it so much. The sun's out, bright, intense blue skies. You can hear so much nature. There's so much greenery and wildlife and parks. It's so much of a slower pace here. The activities that you do is more about going outdoors, especially when it comes to like working out, sports, or just walking or meeting up with friends, going for parties. Everything is done outdoors because the weather is so nice here. It's all about coastal walks, barbecues, going to the beach, going to weekend markets, going for brunch, and they do really good brunches here. Outdoor gatherings, lots of sports. Even the winter, like it's winter now, and it is relatively warm for a winter that I've experienced in the UK. It's very pleasant. I absolutely love winters here. And I can tell like it has a massive impact on people's moods. People are just generally happier here. Whereas the UK is more about pub culture, cinemas, bowling, going to restaurants, and the food is very good in the UK. Going to concerts, music is great in the UK. I don't listen to it as much in Australia. And the same goes for TV. I don't really watch much Australian TV. And it's about theatres, dinner parties. It's always about staying indoors. And I mean, I don't really blame them, because that's exactly the way I used to live when I was living there. And although it was fun, because I was with my friends and family, it's such a refreshing change to be here and be outdoors in nature and just with the sunlight hitting your skin and listening to the ocean, going to the beach, the abundance of sports that you can do here, and even just simple things like hiking and walking is just incredible here. Like, the sights are very picturesque. It's things that you'd see on a postcard. So as you can tell, like, I'm really happy that I'm here. It makes a really big difference to my mood, to my attitude, to my well-being. You feel like you're on a permanent holiday, and no matter where you go in Australia, it's such a beautiful getaway that I can understand why a lot of Aussies don't even leave the country. I mean, why would they need to? When you see coastal views and oceans and beaches. So I touched on this earlier, but when it comes to food, brunches are the best here. They have so many more healthier options in Australia. A lot of like smashed avocado on toast, whereas in the UK, it's more about dinner. And I do specifically remember, like, the Indian food in the UK is just the best. Like, I haven't found anything that is even close to the standard they have in the UK. I'm still on the hunt for the best Indian restaurant. Hopefully I'll find one day, but that's something I really miss. When it comes to health and fitness, something I've really noticed is kids get involved in sports from a very young age. Like, I'm seeing 5-year-olds playing football, both girls and boys, and they're incredible. They're so skillful. It's pretty shocking for me to see. They're learning to swim, they're surfing, they're doing all sorts of outdoor sports. It's very inspiring to see, like, even for someone like me who's a lot older, it's getting me interested to do more outdoor sports. And I feel like I'm in the perfect country to do that. Whereas in the UK, it's more about going to gyms and indoor football, and it's such a shame that they have to play indoors, but I guess they're just working with the weather that they have there. What we consider homes, because I'm from further north of London, everyone lives in a house where I'm from, and that feels like home. Whereas in Sydney, because we're close to the city, it's all about apartments. I mean, if you can afford a house, then you'd have to live like an hour and a half away from the city, and you're still paying a lot of money, so it's very, very expensive. But that's one thing I've had to get used to, is apartment living, and I must admit, I actually quite like it, because we get a beautiful view from a balcony. We're renting, so we can live wherever we want. We can get coastal views, city views. There are a lot of new apartments, which I prefer. It's easier to maintain, there's less costs involved, but in the long term, I think I definitely want to live in a house, because that truly feels like home. Apartments feel temporary to me. So here's all the things I miss from the UK. I miss TV, I miss the music, I miss all the concerts and the gigs they have there, because most artists tend to go around the UK, whereas most of them aren't willing to travel all the way to Australia. I miss the food, but it kind of balances out with the healthier options here. I miss the sense of humour. I think that's, along with my friends and family, they're the things I miss the most. Everyone's generally so much friendlier here, and together with the lifestyle, and feeling like you're in holiday mode like all the time, as opposed to when you're in the UK, you go off to parts of Europe like Spain and Portugal for a couple of weeks, and then you go back to doom and gloom and lousy weather. Here it's more the other way around. It's just sunny most of the year, and there's so much you can do here. It's very peaceful, calm, and exciting and beautiful to live here. And I believe it's such a great place to bring up a family for all the reasons I've mentioned in this video. So hopefully I didn't ruffle too many feathers. This is just my opinion, not everyone's going to agree with my observations. Hopefully you found that a little bit interesting, and it gave you a little bit of an insight of what it's like for an expat to come over from the UK. And hopefully I'll catch you in another video.